Welcome to Pivot and Profit. Podcasts are brought to you by the K Financial and Pace Productions. Now, in this podcast, today is episode 1. Yes, we talk to people who are making a change on the continent, the change makers, and who better than this first guest. Let's put our hands together for Miss Nshuti Mbabazi, Madame Nshuti Mbabazi, Madame Cashless, Madame AFCFTA Integration. Lucy, welcome to Pivot and Profit.
Thank you for having me. Although I think the universe knows me as Nshuti.
Nshuti,
Rwandans know me as Lucy, but
Yes.
everyone else has chosen has been forced to think the Pan-African way.
We go Pan-African. I've actually thought about dropping my first name for a very long time. And I think it's something I'll work on in the next 2 years.
Good drop. But the moment I went to EcoBank, I immediately
Flicked it Pan-African.
looked to Nshuti Mbabazi.
What inspired that shift? Why? What was that light bulb moment where you're like, you know what, to do away with the colonizer's name?
I'm not doing away with it because Lucy means, giver of light. It's a beautiful name. But I wanted to experience the world in a Pan-African, persona, so to speak. Nshuti, friend, Mbabazi, kind. So that was a better one than.
Fun fact: my aunt who named me thought she was naming me after herself because she called Mbabazi. So she was like, Mbabazi means faith, kindness. So it wasn't narcissistic to throw in that Quizera name.
Quizera is beautiful.
I think so.
Because what is life without trust?
Correct. Faith. I still struggle with
trust.
Yeah. And Nshuti, you first of all, for the record purposes, Nshuti is literally my big sister in so many ways. Thank you for that.
It's a joy.
Thank you for, beating me, making sure and kumurong.
It's important to, people think of leadership as a construct of an office. But it really is, a responsibility to lead yourself to do better, then inspire a life or two to do the same, and then they continue, and it's a generational, paid-forward type of thing. So I take joy in being a good big sister, an exemplary one at that.
A tough one as well. It's I don't know if you're even getting the questions out of me, because leadership was part of the questions we needed to talk about and what leadership means, and I think we'll come back to it later, right, regarding your mission in life. But congratulations on the new role, MD Better Than Cash Alliance.
Thank you.
I didn't think of any other person it would fit better than you, and that's because of what your journey and statement has been for a very long time. You have been consistent with the preaching of the need for us to go cashless. First from a national perspective, regional, but now globally. Why is this mission important? Why has it been very important for you, and you've had so much clarity over the past decade plus?
Well, it's the economic opportunity that comes from having basic services. And financial services are among the top of that list. When you are equipped with tools and services to economically empower yourself, you are now beginning the path to wealth creation for our continent, for our country. And at the time that I started, the country was all I thought about. And I got to see in practice what a cashless life, a cashless ecosystem can do for economic empowerment in an individual's life. And so not just the individual, but the community and the country at large. And from the moment I saw us graduate from food rations in aid to that turning into money resources into people's accounts, people who now had an account for the first time ever in their lives. And when they made the choice within 3 months to do away with cashing in and cashing out because they realized it was more expensive for them, and there was no cost to them making a payment digitally to buy their goods or services, the shift from a purely cash, when you digitalize the food aid, it comes to you digitally. But what happens after is really what matters most. And the first instance, 100% cash withdrawal. The second, those numbers started to come down in this former refugee camp in Jihembe with Congolese sisters and brothers. 1,200 calories became $9 per head. And for the first time in the 15 years that these communities had been here, forcibly here, they could choose what they were going to eat. They could be able to not have to sell a portion of their calories to buy as basic as an onion to bring flavor to their food. The indignity of someone choosing for you what you're going to eat and everything else after seemed unfair. And when cashless became a solution, and we came from importing maize flour, cooking oil, and salt and beans that came as the food aid, to now being able to buy from Rwandans this flour and oil and everything that that one needed to make a meal, I think was really transformational. The economy in Gicumbi was booming. The refugees themselves became entrepreneurs. They had capital to start buying the foodstuffs themselves and sell to their peers. What struck a chord with me the most was when I was speaking, as we're doing the financial and digital literacy, when a young mom told me that her young daughter no longer needed to stand by the roadside, or herself, she didn't need to stand by the roadside to get 1,000 francs here, 2,000 francs there, selling her body to truck drivers for needs that they had in the family. And that moment brought clarity on the urgency to do this, because truly lives depend on it, and our economic growth depends on it. We were a cash economy when I came back home. Even my salary, I had to withdraw it in cash and live on that for as long as possible. So the similarities between that young mother and her daughter, in terms of an experience of cash, and anyone else in the city, were similar. All of us were denied ways to grow because of how we transact. And so it became a matter of rights. Everyone should have the right to choose how they pay and how they are paid, so that they can benefit from other financial services, like protective ones, like insurance, like credit, should you need it, and the development that comes from having, the democracy that is digital, to have access to information, to have equal access to services, to have equal access to whatever it is that you aspire to. And so I've remained obsessed with ensuring that everyone can enjoy this, right? And hopefully eventually reach the depth and breadth of their dreams because of that first step of being able to have control over what you earn or what you get and multiply it for yourself and your family and your community and for generations to come. So to have started that here, then have an opportunity to do it at a continental level through EcoBank, and now through the necessary work of policy and regulatory changes which fix the systemic reasons of why people don't have those rights. is a rare privilege. I could never have written this story when I started out.
I've asked so many questions, so I don't know where I'm going to take this conversation.
Yeah.
But because that's quite inspiring. But something sparked this. The clarity was defined by the mother and daughter and the testimony that they gave you. But there was something lit the fire. Could have been at 5 years old, could have been at 10 years old, could have been at 12, right? What lit that fire for Lucy to say, hey, I need to contribute to my country?
Yeah.
Two, I need to contribute to my continent. And I just need to ensure that, to whom much is given, much is expected. Sure. And I've been given much. So I need to give back as much.
So it came in my 20s. I graduated as a software developer and I spent some time.
Keep forgetting that.
And I spent time, building applications, but I didn't feel fulfilled. You know how this thing of finding yourself? I just didn't see myself behind the computer developing software. It's exciting, there is no doubt, and it solves problems. But I really, having grown up in, as a child of refugees, and the consistent narrative of we will go back to our country, and then visiting the country in 1994 and where it was, and then leaving later really with this mindset that I will never come back, because what our parents told us and what we experienced, and of course the sadness that enveloped the country. I was only 14 and 15, and so it was easy for me to make that choice. But then in 2000 and I think 4, my mother and auntie began to work with women, with genocide survivors on both sides of the genocide, whether it was widows of whose husbands were killed or widows whose husbands were in jail for killing, working side by side to create products. Again, with that economic empowerment, we will not be slaves of our past, but we will pick ourselves up and get working. And my mom would come to the US and bring these baskets, and would go to flea markets selling them. I would be the driver or get on the train with her. It was such a humbling experience. Eventually, the Gahirlings was able to get into one of the biggest department stores in the US, Macy's. And I remember going to the launches, and His Excellency was there to give this support. But at that time, I was trying to work out what I'm going to do with my life, and working in a Black-owned company in the US. And in the process of trying to discover myself, applied for a job to be an executive assistant, because I thought it presents such a big spectrum of learning from the various things that the boss does. And this lady looked at me and said, after spending time talking to her, and she said, I'm not giving you this job.
Oof.
Because I think that you have so much potential and your heart really is in development. And I will do everything in my power to help you get into it. So I'll call my friends in the World Bank and other areas. So I came home for the summer in the 2007 for a wedding, and watched now Gahirlings close up versus what it was when I was still in the US, and now interacting with the women and seeing how they've grown and employing their husbands and all the things that came from it. When I went back, she said, now, I'm not going to get you that job as I promised, but I really think you should go back to school and you should study public policy. I didn't know what it was, and I went to do research. Long story short, I had a few great options, and I ended up at the Kennedy School. And at the Kennedy School, I met Calestas Juma, who sat at the intersection of science and technology and
a great son of the continent. He did
And
Yeah.
at that point, interacting with him, working with him on my thesis, which was driving Rwanda's ICT development with RDB IT as my client, as my thesis client, and that thesis becoming my first job here in Rwanda. And in that first job, being given the opportunity to think through how we could digitalize payments for the country, especially from a tourism perspective, because it was our biggest foreign exchange earner at that point. And so in working with everyone involved in RDB, the Ministry of Finance, and Central Bank, and being part of this team to solution this is really what led me here. And those experiences, because I've been headhunted in my position in the work that I've done.
No flex.
Led me to this point. No, I mean, it's the consistency, because you know people can see your heart and they can see your intention is truly to make a difference. And I've been lucky enough to work in a global payments company, and then work more in a context from a banking perspective. How does this work? Build merchant solutions, again, borrowing from my software developers' skill set and working with developers to design a merchant experience that I think remains one of the best. And now to think, but I realize that government has the biggest role to play in a cashless agenda. As much as the private sector may have the products and the innovation and the monies, until we get the policy and regulation right and remove those barriers, we are not going to move far. Hence, better than Cash Alliance.
No, but barriers is, and it's great that you bring it up. It's something you and I have discussed quite a lot. Something I'm also very passionate about. And one of those, and luckily it's also something that came out of being a home solution, is the AfCFTA, right? The African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, which you are one of the people leading very hard conversations. But in there's a challenge, and the challenge comes with leadership, or the lack of it, to ensure that AfCFTA is implemented. What is taking us so long? Because this is a no-brainer, Lucy. Look,
it is.
When you look at how much Europe trades with itself,
Yes.
South America, Northern America, no-brainer. Asia, we're only doing 16%, if those numbers are even right, or less.
They're not right. The thing is, just when you look at our history of being divided, I think we've just... it was just, 140 years ago that our continent was partitioned and then colonized. And then we had to fight tooth and nail to break from those. But even since independence, the extractive nature of this trade in the world, taking the best of us outside that we then import back as finished products, that takes truly clear leadership to make it happen. Now, what Europe and ASEAN and NAFTA have achieved, it's taken decades to do. And AfCFTA, the idea began in 2010. I believe they were few signatories to bring it to life. And it was President Kagame as chair who then decided that we've got to do this. I mean, I imagine he was thinking this is a no-brainer.
It looks like a no-brainer.
And even at the formation of the OAU, really that clarity was there. Yeah. If you think about what Thomas Sankara talked about, how we can trade from east to west, from south to wearing, and he led by example of wearing what was made in his country, and making sure that as much as possible, Burkinabe products were most consumed. And so fast forward to 2018, the agreement is signed. The work of negotiating protocols, obviously I didn't know all this until it came time to do the protocol on digital trade. But it really is the politics.
Yeah, but why is it so complex? And especially when you speak to young Africans, it's a no-brainer. Like, why
But the young Africans are not sitting in government, right? Our governments have legacy systems in many ways. For some who have broken the mold and taken development matters into their hands, it's no coincidence that that Rwanda activated the AFCFTA. But the process of writing the protocol, negotiating it at the various committees, the AFCFTA is moving at quite a fast pace. If you look at the fact that COVID delayed things and they really started
2 years
2021.
after COVID or something.
What they've been able to do in the last 3 years and what they were able to accomplish working through digital means is really commendable. But we can't afford to wait for everybody to ratify documents. We've got to, and I think the digital agenda is much easier to achieve this, to start doing those proofs of concept to make things done. Because many times, if I think from a payments perspective, central bankers are guarding against risk that could destabilize our financial status. So what they don't know or are not clear about, they'll just stop. And particularly in the trade way, person to business, business to business, payments cross border. How do we ensure that with your wallet that you have here, with whoever the provider is, when you cross over to Uganda or you go to Ghana or you go to South Africa, you're still able to transact with your monies? But then it's not happening. Why isn't it happening? People don't have answers. Okay, so let's make it happen and then figure out what it is we need to solve for. I think many times we start with writing the policies and writing the regulations, which is a good starting point. But I think we need to do more practical implementations where we realize in practice with small proofs of concept what it is we're aspiring to. So I think the mindset still continues to be what has been done elsewhere. Let's get the documents right. But we don't have the luxury because we're already late. And so we need to work on ensuring that the trader in Gatuna Katuna
GK
can be able to transact seamlessly, that they don't need 2 SIM cards to transact on both sides of the border digitally, that they have the swiftest crossing of the border, especially because they're known in that community. How do they tap and go, so to speak, to get out? And when they want to transact, they shouldn't be condemned to just doing cash, which then limits their access to credit. These things go together. Private sector-led development is the surest way to beat poverty, the surest way. Unfortunately, we've gone at it from a government standpoint and working out the government policies, and it's important to now bring the two together, work from the ground up, where in the real lives of people who employ the most people, we are getting solutions to work until we arrive at such a point of harmony that there is no conversation to be had on why this is important. So it's a no-brainer indeed. But until we actualize it in the lives of businesses and they have in the case of digital trade, the digital tools and tariffs are not in place to choke everybody, but rather to drive this ubiquitous efficiency, ubiquitous access and ubiquitous usage in trade spaces, I think we can begin to see real change. And for us at Better Than Cash Alliance, I think this is where we've got to place a lot of effort in, they always say, what came before, regulation or innovation? I think we need to drive these things together by working with the private sector because we have no shortage of solutions, no shortage of capital, dare I say, because financial inclusion, digital inclusion is a business proposition. Now it is for...
It's not charity.
It is not. And so it is for government to remove whatever barriers, perceived or reality, so that we can get that capital flowing to invest in driving that every trader on the borders has what they need to
And Nshuti, this is what we, and by we I mean the young people on the continent, don't understand, right? When you speak to many of them. It's a no-brainer. The numbers make sense. So what is not making sense to our leadership, right? And I'm not condemning one country, but across the board, not to actually implement this ASAP?
I don't even think that there is a particular thing you can point to, because think about, a head of state at any given moment has so many competing priorities, from national security to people having basic things like water, clean water, because these are the things that prevent disease, healthcare, all of that. And in the midst of that, they've now got to think about trade. And trade is never, it's an important part of, but we've been working from trade in terms of exporting coffee, exporting these cash crops.
Yeah.
And yet the reality is many of us are employed by food crops. But even then, in that ecosystem, as long as the export gets to the border and they leave, there is no checking of the entire value chain. And if you look at these big export areas, the most important stakeholder in this value chain is the least digitally and the least financially included. And so now it is, how do we ensure that as the coffee is getting out, everyone is equally equipped to benefit, to have the tools and services that they need to thrive, such that that farmer can be able to have information about prices, can be able to have information about climate predictability, be able to know how to plan for any drought. And if there's an insurance product, they're able to access it because they did the right things. Technology is here to serve everyone. And perhaps instead of the coffee going out as beans,
raw material,
that we begin to set up these factories that finish that product, that put the tea, the best quality tea. Even here, we grow tea, but we drink the dust of the tea. So, it's a whole conversation around how do we extract value, the most value of this product locally. It requires heavy investment. And governments like ours have made that investment because they had no choice but to make the investment to start. And then now you see the privatization. But for economies that have had no history of genocide, have had well-educated people, have had a history of private sector-led development, it really we've got to get there. But I think we start by doing and have pockets of doing. Many times we tell the story of doom, and yet there are people who are really giving everything that they can. I think we need to tease those out in podcasts like this to know what is happening in your village, that they are innovating around this particular strength that they have and getting this raw material to value-added product. And maybe the community is coming together to invest. What are these stories that we can tell that inspire great change, that especially mobilize the capital to make these things happen? I believe that even if you're not educated in terms of the elite way of educated, but you have grown up with a product and can extract its value out of it with additional support from those who are quote-unquote educated to make the most of it. I think we need to stop talking and expecting leaders to do things and be leaders ourselves to begin actioning that which can happen and then calling attention to it in a way that really lives up to the power of the people. There's no Calvary coming, including government coming to save us from the things that we need. So how do we start off on our own with what we have where we are and begin to mobilize the attention to get it? It's what our grandparents did. It's what, so why can't we pull from if you can be able to get you and your family out of a refugee camp, just from an example, and go on to create work that educates your children, and then they go on to succeed and have children like me and you and everyone else. Surely this generation that has not had to endure and give up so much has got to step up, never getting comfortable in what people sacrifice so much for us to be here, but do the easier but even more difficult work of shifting our mindset to seeing ourselves as part of the solution and as the solution to be able to do things. So I implore young people to stop thinking, why isn't government? I'm sorry, what are you doing? What are you doing to take it from conversation to action?
Okay.
How are you bringing your friends together to pull your resources together to start a factory of something?
Yep.
To go to the village and maybe take the groundnuts that are being powdered
brick
in
and
mortar,
mortar, yeah.
to buy the first machine that the village will use to do that quickly,
Yeah.
to turn it into peanut butter that can then be
An industry.
sold
and
in Rwanda and exported elsewhere. We also have got to come together. I think we are as strong as we are united. Many times we want to be the first, we want to be the only ones, we want to be this. There is no success that can come from us working in silos, from us competing with each other. We should just be competing with being our best selves and bringing our best self every single day. The competition is who you are yesterday. How do you do better today? And then together bring these strengths to really get it done. Many times we will start by having these ideas and then, I don't want to share because,
it will take something away from my table. The pie is big enough for everyone, right?
Truly, there are 13 million people in this country. There are 1.something billion people on this continent. You cannot think that small, that you will not come together to really put your ideas together and build on the strength. It's what started the liberation of this country. One person started with an idea, mobilized others, mobilized resources, and they fought, even in the small numbers that they were, to liberate this country. And we stand on that foundation and look how far we have come. Surely, with better education, with better systems, with better services,
access.
with better access, we can do more. We need to stop feeling sorry for ourselves. We need to stop being entitled and really get to the heart of being part of the solutions. Yes, as part of the Leo Africa is hearing, if you're complaining, you're not part of the solution.
No.
If, whatever it is don't wait for someone else to come and do it. You start the work, and I'm sure people will join, because that is really how I believe all of us have started.
Well, the past decade, you've challenged me on this so many times, and I would go back home and I'm like, okay, But, Nshuti, leadership is something at the core of many of the things you do. And you've had this since, and I've seen you do it across multiple industries, right? It hasn't been down to just cashless, no. What is leadership to you?
It's a responsibility.
Who's a good leader?
One who cares enough to...
The people that care about things, but
Yeah,
just,
they care
they will
about-
talk about
If you're
things.
if you're just talking, you don't care. You don't, because you've got to care enough to do something about it. Right? Whether it is your family not eating, how are you going to get food on their table sustainably so that they're not depending on you to give them money all the time? So what opportunities can you contribute to?
But let's say so many people want to be the rich man in the village, whereby
And that's the problem.
Yeah, everyone is coming to you to be the one to solve.
Well,
the-
then that's not rich. Actually, that is... I need to measure my words carefully here, but there's no wealth that is going to be created when people are coming to beg you. There's greater wealth when people are able to come from that which you have been able to give them and build upon it to be better. And I go back to the shoulders that we stand on. One cow became two, a calf became a cow, and they went on to have farms and mobilize, and nobody came to save or to help or support the liberators. It was we ourselves. It was the parents, the grandparents, and everybody involved. Even the children were out there putting up concerts to get resources. Because mothers leaving their homes to go look for blankets and food for the liberators. We've done this before.
Where are we stopping
when
now?
the odds were so much against us and opportunities were just not there. I think we need to tap back, and maybe these stories need to be told even more, into that same sense of urgency, like our lives depended on it, because they do. And I really would love to see conversations stand from, okay, so now this is a problem. We agree, we align, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Now what?
When next?
And beginning to every one of us answer that question. If you are the the bank of the family or the community, you're not, something is up. You're not leading. Leading is that you care enough to do something fantastic, but especially to put people to stand on their feet so that they can begin to fish for themselves and be able to teach their children the same. It can't be the same cycle. We have the responsibility to break it, and we must. The question is, if you don't respond to the charge of it, don't stand in the way of those who are. Don't be the bad mouther. Don't be sitting in envy and whatever. Use that energy to make a contribution. So for me, leadership is, first of all, a choice to do something better for the greater good and to care enough to do it. And when you do it, you don't stop. You keep building from strength to strength and mobilizing others. For me, the measure of a leader is one who believes in something, gets someone else to believe in it and take action on it, and then continue the mobilization for other do-gooders. Today, that is still, I think we have many. The problem is that the stories of the many that are doing something remain at what we call the high level. And I'm sure we have people in our villages that are doing amazing, that we can bring out and amplify, and they share their stories in whatever language is good for them. We've got to decolonize what success is and what a difference is.
You're throwing me another challenge.
And realize that the most stories are not happening in the air-conditioned conferences. They're really on the ground. And I draw so much inspiration from the ground to do things. And I do my best to bring people to the ground to see and really solve practically in a way that makes a difference in people's lives. So for me, that's what leadership is, and what is the only measure of leadership is how much impact have you had really in improving the livelihoods of people.
Nshuti, there's an Zulu proverb that says, the most heavy things in life are not in gold or iron or diamonds, but rather the unmade decisions. What is your unmade decision that you look back to and say, if I had done that, maybe I could have accelerated this much faster? Or if I just had the balls or the guts then to just start sooner, there would have been much more impact.
Investing.
Why? You're a good investor. Lately, you've been so obsessed with investing. You're investing in everything.
What if I had started earlier, right?
Okay, fair.
I really wish I had taken more risk with the small resources that I had to build assets. And it's something that I keep thinking about for my kids, and that I tell folks, scared money really doesn't make
Scared money don't make no money. Just for the record, people, Lucy is an investor in our venture studio. So she's one of the LPs. Yeah.
But we it's so important to invest, however little. But even then, the investments I've made in people, having better education, better opportunities in mentorship, in all of those, are enough wealth for me to not feel so guilty about that unmade decision of putting my own money. But now that I'm wiser, bringing the two together, I look forward to what is to come. I think that employment is really just a means to capital. And people should look at it as such. It is not the beginning, it is not the end. And it really can be a trap of...
it's comfort.
It's
Comfort.
And I think for your generation and the generation after you, I really hope that you will not be employment seekers.
No.
You will be creators of opportunities because you have everything at your disposal to do that. Now, of course, we need to have people working, the frontliners in government, in hospitals, in markets. But if you are an investor in any one of those things working as best as they could, I think we can take our continent further. I really hope that in our generation, or certainly yours, we can celebrate like Mali, being debt-free and being aid-free. Aid is important.
But can we get rid of...
But clearly, 60 years of being with aid, we still are not rich. So it's important that we maximize the support that we get from those well-wishers, but also recognize that it's dwindling and it can run out because at any given moment, COVID, some disease may come and disrupt that. And of course, charity must begin at home.
Yeah.
And so we really have a small window to get to that graduation. And I really believe that private sector-led development, which the AFCFTA gives us, has got to be, really is our only ticket to that destination.
Nshuti, my mom used to tell me, who are you 5 years from today, right? So when I was going into high school and chose the school I wanted to go to, she was like, where do you see yourself 5 years from today? Do you see yourself in this school? Oh, and what do you want to be doing? Like, her challenge was always 5 years from today. Who is Nshuti in 2029?
Nshuti in 2029 is Nshuti today, is problem solving.
Okay.
What is the problem of the day? And solving it. But in doing that, being the best mother I can be, which is my full-time and first job, most passion work.
Amazing nieces.
But a meaningful contributor to bettering the livelihoods of not just Africans, since now
I've gone global.
But really for every citizen of the world to have a decent life, a decent wage, and decent opportunities. And I really believe that digitalization, as much as it is a double-edged sword, is especially a good thing. And we really must put everything to making it happen. So the Nshuti today is the Nshuti in 2029 and beyond that. I will be wherever solution is needed and ensuring that my children are part of that as well. And everyone around me is part of meaningfully contributing to bettering humankind.
Nshuti, as we wrap this up, what's a day like? Yes.
Well, it starts off with my children waking up before 6:30. If I'm lucky enough to wake up before them, then I'll squeeze in some quiet, uninterrupted time. But then, taking care of their needs is the first priority. Getting one ready for school is the other. Exercising, and then sitting down to begin the day by 8:39 at the latest. For days that I'm not at home, I still endeavor to wake up at 5:30. and have uninterrupted quiet time, and then do my most important work of the day, because I feel like I'm most productive before 9 a.m. And then, whatever interactions I need to have to move the needle on, whether it is my health or my family or it is work. And I end the day just like I began it, with my kids, giving them a bath, putting them to bed.
You never miss bath time, at least when you're home. That, for the record, yeah.
Yes.
You're an amazing mother.
Thank you. It is the most important job. Leadership starts at home, and you've got to model that which you want to see your children do. And so I start the day with my family, and I end it with my family. Everything in between is all about enriching this important part of me, which is my family. And there's never a wasted day.
Nshuti is an avid golfer as well. I don't know which part she missed that part.
Golf is when I have time, right? It's a social thing.
It is. So it's good exercise as well.
It is, but every Sunday I'm on the course with my daughter. We practice and we enjoy mommy and daughter time. And so when I can play golf, I play it. Hopefully once the babies are older, I'll be back to my 5 a.m.
golf time.
Time.
We miss you at the 5 a.m. golf time.
I miss it too. Soon enough, we'll be back.
Thank you for making the time.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Nshuti Mbabazi, MD Better Than Cash Alliance, a big sister. Did I mention that? Thank you for watching our very first episode of Pivot and Profit. Now, this is a podcast that's brought to you in collaboration. This is the Care Financial and Pace Productions, a podcast that speaks to Africa's movers and shakers, people that are really making change on the continent. Don't forget to subscribe. Have a great day.